All right, greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I wanted to follow up on this situation because we had some comments come in, and I always open the platform for live discussion, but I understand people have busy schedules because I like discourse where we can actually move the needle forward, right? There's some people who come to the conversation with what they call confirmation bias. You already believe something and you're just looking for information to support that belief. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. And what I do here essentially is have discussions that can help us to possibly grow and expand as human beings, right? None of us, for the most part, know either of these two parties. But for some reason, we, the people, like to get into these tribal teams to go one against the other. And what that does is it transfers over into our everyday lives. We don't know how to critically think. For the most part, we get emotionally charged, and then we're not able to really resolve problems in our own lives because the same approach that we take to strangers on the internet are sometimes the same approach that we take to people in our everyday lives. School, work, church, wherever you may go, once we the people learn to become emotionally charged on a situation, then we're not able to rationally and objectively tune in. And this is why I'm coming back with this discussion, because I have some comments here, and shout out to the people who made them, but let's take a look here, and then I'm going to go into why sometimes people are like, I'm not trying to talk to you, and that's all good. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. Are we able to see? Welcome to those who just joined us, by the way. And if you missed it yesterday, why am I not seeing it? Let me drop the screen and then pull it up. Yesterday, I talked about this Citi bike situation, and I usually, I don't know these people. Okay, this is something that we're experiencing as a global community because it's all over the internet. Here we go, right? And so people have opinions. They talk about it over lunch and dinner and wherever they're having these conversations, and it even divides people in real time because of our emotional triggers, right? So I've studied what I call solonomics for the last 20 years. My expertise is in learning how I work, my thoughts, what it is that I do to form my thoughts and opinions. And over the years, I've shared the information that I've come across to help other people grow their emotional intelligence and be able to interface with humanity with less stress, so to say, right? So let's get into this here. Let's get into it really, really quickly. So one of the comments was, and what I'm going to do is break down some of the things that I'm seeing that might be problematic, right? Even if you believe the kid's story, right? That means all that you just said in the 60 minutes plus minutes of reading an article of a woman that interviewed the children for 50 minutes. Or even interviewed the young man for 50 minutes. So if someone says, even if that's the case, they're giving you the benefit of the doubt. They're not speaking to, it's a way of dismissing someone. Say you are talking to your boss and you're pouring all your emotions out, whatever happened with you or your experience, right? And they say, even if that happened, they're not speaking to anything you just said. That means as you're having this conversation, their ears are closed. These are cues, they're context clues to tell us this person is only willing to give and they're not willing to receive. Because the article I read, I did give my opinion, but my opinion was based on a first-hand account. And the first-hand account was from the young man who's the other side of this story. So what that's telling me already is that the person who's making the comment is not open to hearing the full matter. I go by biblical principles, right? And biblical principle says that you need to do diligent inquiry. It also says that one man should not rise up against another when you're going to court and you're not able to hear the other side, basically. So if we're hearing one side from her lawyer, then rightfully we should hear the other side. So one of the contestations of the mother is that the people did not want to hear the other side, because what happens on the internet is that, and this can be applied across the board. This is not just about City Bike, Karen, and Thugs. This is to show that many a time and many a day, people's lives, and in this case, both of these people's lives, right? The woman and the young boy are being adversely affected by people's behavior on the internet, and it bleeds into everyday life. And because you're behind a keyboard, because people can speak recklessly, they don't take it seriously that you're adversely affecting someone's life because you want to bring how you do things in the quote unquote real world that's bringing trouble, more than likely, to the person's life, and now put that wholesale on the internet where there is no accountability. Right? There unless somebody goes to the degree where Cardi B went to the degree with the blogger Tasha K to hold her accountable for the things that she's saying. So this is why I think this is important to come back and talk. And I'm not going to stay long, but let me continue here. Because what we like is sensationalism, but it's not right, because at the end of the day, you ruin people's lives and the lives of those people's family, because we are brought into their world for how many minutes or how many seconds, and we form these opinions and putting people into, the jail of public opinion when they did not have a free trial. They did not have the right to face their accuser. They did not have any of those constitutional rights. And yet here we are. So let's go on. So my point is, if someone says, even if you believe the kid's story, it means that you could have spoken to something within the children's story or the child's story. Nothing was spoken to, therefore the child's account was basically discounted. And then the person goes on to their point, because usually we have a strong point that we're trying to prove. If we don't want, and I'll say this, I think it is just sometimes mental. It's easier to be emotionally charged than it is to step back and mentally assess the situation. That takes too much investment. And sometimes people don't want to invest that time, energy, and effort. We just want to be in our feelings, whoop-de-whoop, and arguing with the internet. That to me is a waste of time because it does not forward the conversation. But anywho, you called dibs on a bike for 5 minutes, totally understandable. But locking down a public bike service for 40 minutes just reeks of greed and is insane. Now, how do you know? Where are you getting this data from? Based on what we read and based on what the reports are, the person was riding the bicycle. They were on the bicycle for this 45, 46 minutes. They did not, I'm not understand of what reeks of greed and insanity when it's designed for you to ride long distances. So the person was utilizing the service. Now, as I said yesterday, I'm not the lawyer for any one of these, but according to the culture, what we're going to look at, this bike docking, bike surfing situation has become a culture that we, the onlookers, are not considering when we are judging this matter, right? A lot of this family actions are littered with greed. Now, I don't know where the person got this information from. How did they conclude that the person's family is greedy? We can, be all footloose and fancy free with our words. That's why sometimes you see me stop and think about what I'm going to say. Taste your words before you spit them out. I don't know these people. How did you conclude that they were greedy? Let's continue. They only came forward. Now we're assuming. Imagine you're in a conversation with a person, right? And the person has already concluded that whatever you have to say, they don't want to hear. So now they're going to paint you in a negative light. Now they're going to assume why you said something, why you came forward. And so what makes this frustrating if you're in a relationship or if you have to work in a work environment is that the person all by their onesie is coming up with a storyline that is not based in reality. Okay. So because then the person says they only came forward after seeing how much money the nurse was getting from GoFundMe. How do you know that? How do you know that that was the impetus for the reason the person came forward? The mother clearly stated in the article, right, that the reason they came forward is because no one was asking them. Their family was being maligned. The young man was being maligned. And no one came forward as it related to what their experience was. And according to what the mother's saying, this is why she came forward. So I don't know where you get the only reason they came forward was money motivated. Let me continue. If they wanted to tell their story, they would released it alongside the video, but they didn't care about giving their story then nor when it was harming the nurse. Again, these are all, when you're in court and they're like, objection, Your Honor. It's like, objection, because where are you getting this from? Again, this is how we discuss, though. One of the major issues with humanity, people in general, is the way in which we converse, the way in which we exchange ideas, the way in which we value or belittle the position of the other person to exalt our thoughts and position because we may not have. Chavez, welcome to the conversation. So I see this happening as I study over the years. You can see it just in transitions, the way the person dismisses you, even if you believe, even if that happened, and then they went into their theory, right? So I want to shout out to the person for sharing, but it illustrates that already you have made your choice. You have already decided that this person is guilty. And at which point, if you're partial, then you can't be on the jury. When someone goes to the jury, you have to hear all the facts. The jury doesn't just say, "Oh, I saw a 2-second video. Look how long the R. Kelly trial was." You have to hear the whole matter, and then you see what it is that you're judging, right? And so that's not happening on the internet. And the internet, I've seen the internet grow since the 2000s, and it has become a place that has done much good, but much harm to people's lives because of the attitude that we take, this kind of nonchalant attitude that we take when dealing with matters that come before us, right? Like I said before, the mainstream media is being informed now by the consensus of the internet. The person goes on to say, also the 6 months pregnant woman after a 12-hour shift. Again, this is humanizing her. What oftentimes people do when they disagree and not deal with the situation objectively, then one has to dehumanize one in order to humanize the other. For those who fall on the side of the woman, you notice she's being humanized. She's 6 months pregnant. She worked a 12-hour shift. But as it relates to the young man, he's dehumanized. He's a thug. When even the article attempting to dehumanize him by saying he comes from an immigrant family, he's coming from the Bronx, right? He doesn't have the resources. In the attempt to humanize him, we hear, even if that's the case, let's move on. So oftentimes, if you find yourself in a situation where someone is taking away your humanity, it's because they already have deemed you guilty, and they desire to paint you as this other, right? And so again, it's a technique that we do, and it's one that causes problems in relationships, period. Right? We don't have the whole matter. So how we all on sides, I don't understand. But let's continue. Being able jumping over them, scanning the bike. It says being capable of jumping over them, scanning the bike, undocking it, all while the dude was holding onto the bike off camera. But a camera, she can't overpower him, is kind of sketchy. So now again, the person is saying, based on the facts and the information, that yeah, they took their public opinion. Welcome to those who just joined us. Is on some next level, and beyond the next level, it is ruining people's lives, like people's real-time lives. This woman is getting threats. This young man is afraid to do what he needs to do. His family doesn't even want their real names to come out. You don't see the damage that you're doing. But talking about energy and karma, you got to understand this stuff comes back. This stuff comes back. People think because you're behind a screen or because you're just typing that words don't have power. Words create, right? And so when somebody judges you in the same matter in your everyday life and you feel like you didn't get a fair shake and you're wondering where it's coming from, remember how you showed up for somebody who you couldn't see and didn't know. Even if you don't like the person, you hear the matter out, okay? It says here, the bike was, so he doesn't believe the storyline, but I asked the question, when the camera cuts on, like I asked someone else, I basically told the person that there are a few assumptions that lean towards that you're painting the narrative that one is right and the other is wrong. When the camera came on, who decided to turn on the camera? Why would a bunch of thugs who thought they were in the wrong, greetings for everybody who just joined us, why would they decide to turn on the camera? The young woman didn't turn on the camera. These young men turned on the camera because they understood the climate in which they live in. So they turned on the camera for their protection. That's something to keep in mind. It wasn't a bystander, somebody who was passing by who caught the interaction. It's the young man seeing that this thing is escalating and telling his friend turn the camera on so that they can record it. My question was, all of the things that proceeded, what happened? And the only thing that's really telling us what happened before this point is the interview that we read yesterday. But if you choose to dismiss this, then you're not here for the whole truth, nothing but the truth. That's you here for something else, and everybody's entitled. Let's go on a little bit more. Like I said, I got another meeting, so I'm not gonna stay long. Someone else came and told me it has nothing to do with race or class. That was my assertion. My assertion is this thing is compounded. It's not just one thing, because he wouldn't be riding Citi bike on a reduced fare if he had resources. So this is why I say this has to do with economy. It has to do with economics, right? The person goes on to say it is all about a thug, point blank. Let's pause right here. The name calling, we may see or think that that's nothing, it's name calling. The same way her lawyer is indifferent and feels as though it's defamation to call her a Karen, which is a pejorative term, so is the term thug. The liberal use of calling these young men, the 17-year-old, a thug, is trying to paint the person in the minds of the public, as well as the media, as this person who came out of nowhere to do this person harm. That's problematic, because if the evidence bears out that that's not true, you just malign somebody's name. Does anybody remember the Central Park Five? The reason why a lot of the melanated community has a problem with this is because this is repetitive behavior. The moment there is a conversation between a European and a melanated person, it is thought automatically that that melanated person is in the wrong. That is historic. And if those don't know who've just joined the channel, years ago, I went knee deep and beyond into the foundation of slavery and the effects of slavery in this country. Okay, so that is something that I'm prepared to have a discussion on. And people who keep saying, why can't you get over it? One of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, understood. Thomas Jefferson understood that this was going to be a problem, and it wouldn't be something that you would be easy to get over. That is noted in the notes of a Virginia planter. One of his autobiography, Thomas Jefferson noted that he understood back in 1700s that if you left the population that you wronged amongst the general community, it would be problematic. But I'm not going to go down that trail. So every time we see what is like a pimple on the face of America, a blemish on the face of America, it is because internally these things exist. When you have pimples and things that come out and blemishes on the skin, that means you may have liver, blood, urine, something within you is trying to purge. That's what pimples are. It's your body trying to push the impurities to the surface. And oftentimes when we see them, we want to put foundation over it. We want to put makeup on it. We want to try to get away from the reality that these blemishes are coming from a deeper problem. Maybe you got gut issues. I digress. Let's continue. So basically, this person wants to call the individuals. Now, do I agree with where the young man take it when he gets belligerent at the end of the video? In the beginning of the video, he's not belligerent. But when she snatches his phone, he switches over into this tone where people could say, okay, he was coming for her, right? And the things that he said at the end of the video, I don't agree with. But let me continue. So the person is calling him a thug. Let me go ahead here. If he was a thug, why didn't he lay hands on her? Which would have been another conversation, right? Let me see here. So thug, a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. So if the person is not known to be a criminal, if he was not aggressive towards her, if he did not strike her, hit her, assault her, how did we derive or how did we land to him being a thug? The most we have is his unwillingness, his hand on the steering wheel, his unwillingness to let her take the bike that both of them, this is a bike dispute. This belongs on Judge Judy. This belongs on the people's court, right? So that this situation, this is what one person is saying is theirs and the other person is saying it's theirs. That's what's going on here, and it's been made into something else. DJ Saul says, my comment is on screen. Hey, everybody. Oh, welcome to the conversation, right? So, first, now the young man is being called a thug. And to the other point that the person is saying, this is why the mother said he came forward because the situation split the people and they're calling her son all of these names, okay? A thug using physical force to take a bike from a pregnant woman who rented it and was responsible for it. Now the question is, if he was at the location first and she reached over him to be able to get this bike, which some would say he may have felt like he was assaulted, when he may have felt that she invaded his personal space to obtain this permission, then in his mind he is performing a response. He did not initiate the situation. He's responding to the situation. Because if people are saying, according to the report, that she asked, why would she ask for something that was fair, clean and fair, fair and clean? There would be no need to engage in this discourse if there was nobody at the bikes, as what the lawyer came out and said. There was nobody at the bikes, and she went up to it, and then all of a sudden somebody ran up to the bike and stopped her. We don't know. Okay, that doesn't sound plausible, but let's continue. She would have had to pay $1,200. So we're going over to that. He took the bike. It doesn't make sense that someone is making that claim, because if he took the bike, then he would have rode off with the bike with her card on the bike. Why would he put the bike back in the dock if he was trying to steal it from her and cause her to incur a $1,200 fee? That doesn't make any sense. Taking the bike would be snatching the bike from her and scooting off down the block. You understand what I'm saying? He did not snatch the bike, push down the pregnant woman, and then scoot off down the block. He redocked the bike. So that whole conversation should be thrown out, since we're playing TV court here, because he did not ride off with the bike. He actually reset the bike because, again, there's a dispute on who rightfully should have the bike. What we're looking at is that, she rightfully had rights to the bike because she beat him to the punch, basically. She beat him to scanning it in. Right. And so I think that's really what they were fighting over when it came on screen. The person goes on to say it doesn't matter why the thug was using force. Now, this derogatory way in which melanated people have been classified, I think this Karen conversation is giving European people a taste of what it feels like to be typecasted in this way, and so much so that they are fighting back against this Karen title, because it is making them feel as though any time that I express some displeasure, I am being a Karen. But welcome to the club, because my very first book that I wrote was called Angry Black Woman. No, that's not the very first book. The first one I wrote on this topic was called Angry Black Woman Syndrome Revisited. And that book is available on Amazon. There's a lot of videos all over YouTube about it. And why I think stereotyping and cliche is very important is because early on, during slavery and post-slavery, there were a lot of labels put on melanated people so that you can control the narrative. Lazy, shiftless, thieves, thugs, all of these came out of the institution of slavery, because a name has power. If you could control the way people see someone else, then you can control that person. The Angry Black Woman actually I took interest in it because I wanted to know why every time a woman was called an angry Black woman, because she spoke up, because she opened her mouth. And what I found, essentially, the long and short of it is this term originated or came from slavery. The angry Black woman is the woman who didn't want to lay down. She didn't want to be quiet when you stole her child. She spoke up. And because in that time they would call her obstinate, okay, they would call her disagreeable. She wasn't malleable in the hands of the master. And essentially, through the blackface era, through this time of where Black people were mocked by white people in these stage shows, the angry Black woman, as well as the sapphire, as well as the sexually explicit woman, was all played by European men. And this title came down through the time of sitcoms, Amos and Andy, and all of those other sitcoms onto today. So this is a long running narrative. So to say that the woman is a Karen is saying that she's stereotyped, and the people who were stereotyping at this point, and it's not to play, this is just history lesson. This is not this person hates that person. This is a history lesson. This is factual. You can look it up and see it for yourself. And that study is on Amazon, but I'll continue. Thug is their substitute word they can use in public for what they really want to say. I mean, there's a possibility. There's a possibility, right? It doesn't matter why the thug was using force against her. So twice in this situation, without proving that he was violent, that he assaulted her, that he desired to assault her, right? According to the narrative, they told her, no, ma'am, no, thank you, we're going to be using it. So how did they become thugs? Thugs, you'll know a thug when you see one. You don't have to guess or surmise if somebody is a thug. And if somebody is a thief, then it would indicate that the person stole something from you, right? So again, here we are. The person says it was assault. I took the liberty yesterday to look up the term for assault and what classified as assault, and taking the person's phone from them, which is what the woman did. I forgot her name, Sarah. What she did, she took his phone from him. That could be classified as assault. You understand? So if you get into this space and we're using these words that when you go into court have very different meanings, we have to be careful. It says the docked bike was available for anyone to rent, and she rented it. The docked bike was available. Was somebody there? According to the narrative, yes. Did she ask them to use it? Yes. Did she decide to take matters into her own hands and bypass the person who was near to it? Yes. Did it ensue and cause some type of rumble? Yes. So she made a choice that exactly what you said. The black and white of the law is it was available. I rented it. But why did it cause a conflict? It caused a conflict because someone was already there. Point blank, period. There's absolutely no justification to assault a pregnant woman. Again, you would have to, what part of the conversation was assault? No matter what race or class you belong to. Let me look up assault real quick in this Black's Law. By the way, I'm looking up Black's Law dictionary, not our own definition of what assault may mean. I'm about to look up Black's Law so that we can see Sarah Jane Comrie. Thank you so much. That's her name. That is her name. So I'm not going to be long. I just wanted to say thank you to those who commented. Like, I'm not calling you out your name. I'm not attacking you. I don't do all that stuff because who has time, right? But what I will say is that to improve our discussion and communication over the internet as well as with others, we have to be willing to hear the matter out. And that means we have to deal with our implicit biases. Now, everybody have biases, right? But we have to be able to somewhat be objective, to hear out all the facts before we declare that somebody is guilty and somebody is innocent. Because believe it or not, you are affecting people's real life. You may think, oh, I just left a comment on the internet and I'm about to go drink my coffee, right? But you are affecting people's real lives. People really doxed this woman. This woman really got sat down from her job. You know what I'm saying? The young man really is having real-time issues. And that's something to consider. Hold on. Hold on. So let me know if you got any thoughts on the matter. I'm trying to pull it up here. If you have any thoughts on the matter, that's just mine. Just taking an opportunity to show that, A, it's not just play out here. Someone flat out told me, this is DJ, that she took his phone in defense. Face palm. This is what I'm saying. If you see, okay, assault. Any willful attempt or threat to inflict injury upon the person of another, when coupled with an apparent present ability to do so, and any intentional display of force, such as would give the victim reason to fear or expect immediate bodily harm. The way that the young man is standing with his hand on the handlebars, at what time did he, if she was so afraid of him, according to the narrative, and he was already there, why would she push her way onto the bike? I don't think his hand moved off the handlebar except to take his phone back. And at which point he went from passive to aggressive because she invaded his face, took his phone, and at which point now he's hurling, insults at her, asking her if she's crazy, what's going on with her. And if you notice, like some people, when she was calling out for help, which I said yesterday was historically a problematic turning point, okay? And when the other man from the hospital came over and tried to diffuse the situation, her whole demeanor changed. Someone who's afraid of someone is not going to stand there when, in all honesty, you can just get off the bike in the same way that you did 2 seconds later. Right? So you have to really prove, if you're going to prove that the person feared for their life, that the person was going to assault them. The first question is, if you were afraid, why did you go over there? And why did you stay there if you were afraid? You don't go to harm if you're afraid. You go away from it. Yeah? So again, there we go with that. That's my thoughts on the matter. Let me see if I got anything else. And let me know yours. Again, like I said, my thing is about taking this beyond just the internet and understanding that some of the problems that we have in life in general are based on communication. Lack of communication, lack of effective communication, these biases that we have, unresolved issues and trauma that now we get to paint and color everybody in the same way because X, Y, and Z. It's not fair and it's not just. I know we are inclined to do so. It's 6:30. I know that we're inclined to do so, but prayerfully we can leave this world a little better than we found it, right? And understand that these people are just not cardboard cutouts. These are people with real lives and real families, and we have to be responsible for the way in which we add our 2 cents into the situation. So again, thank everybody for tuning in. This is Amuna, and go ahead and take a look at the channel if you're new. And there's a lot of stuff on here. I used to cover day-to-day stuff, but after a while, it gets a bit taxing, right? If you want some of the information that I covered on the Lev project, you can check that out as well. A lot of information that even at the time, I would be honest, in reading this stuff, it brought up a lot of feelings and emotions, right? That I was able to process. This is why now I can come at a different space, because melanated people as well as European people all have intergenerational DNA trauma when they come to this conversation. You may be speaking to somebody and it's their great granduncle talking. It's the trauma from those who came before you that's bound tightly into the coils of your DNA. You may not know why something triggers you. You understand what I'm saying? And we need to make allowance. It's not just the people. They say that we are a composite of all those who came before us. So it's not just the people who you're looking at today. Some people may react in a certain way, in the same way Sarah may have reacted in a certain way from whatever generational experience that she may be having. There's a book I actually just picked up again today. You can check it out on Amazon. It's called It Didn't Start With You. So what I basically do is look at history and look at epigenetics and look at psychology as well as all of these things and try to figure out what went wrong, what's continuing to go wrong. So that book, It Didn't Start With You, looks at how you can have intergenerational trauma that you're experiencing, and it may not have been you personally who went through that situation, right? But you feel inclined to feel a certain way or think a certain way based on those who had that situation happen to them before you. DNA is a very interesting thing, and so is epigenetics, right? So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the box below, and I'll be back again and talk to you a little more. Everybody have a blessed day. Be safe. You know what I mean? No fighting over city bikes, man.